Hey guys, it's Phil here. Welcome to this Tuesday's live free seminar all about how to boost your health. I'm your host, Dr. Phil Parker. If you don't know, I'm just moving my screens around. You see my eyes darting from left to right. But we're beginning. So welcome. I know there's going to be quite a few people joining. We've had thousands of people watch these seminars over the last 6 weeks. I'm hoping it's because they find them interesting rather than they've got just nothing else to do. But here we are. Today we're going to focus, as ever, on how do you boost your health. And there's loads and loads of ways that we can boost our health, as we talked about. There's physical stuff we can do, but there's also mental stuff we can do, because our health is affected by not only what we're doing with our body, but what we're doing with our mind. And our mind, of course, influences both our mental health but also our physical health, and that's one of my specialities, as many of you know, the mind-body connection, which runs both ways: the way our body affects our mind, the way our mind affects our body. So we're going to be looking at some stuff. Welcome, and do leave a comment. Hi Prina, nice to see you. I'm glad you like the background. I've got a number of backgrounds today. You can tell me which one you want. We've got the waterfall. I'm quite fond of the waterfall, but last week we had the old beach, which is rather nice. And today I think we've got an extra one, which is one of my favourites. I can't remember what number it is. I think it's 7. Let's try 7. Oh yeah, which is a nebula. I don't know if anybody's been stargazing recently. Some amazing stuff in the sky. Oh, welcome. Hi Lucy. I know Lucy's not been well. I hope you're feeling better, Lucy. I spoke to somebody just yesterday who's got diagnosed with COVID. I'm just going to go back to the waterfall, and they were saying they went to hospital and their oxygen levels were low, and they didn't test them. They said, we're not really generally doing tests, but it looks like you've definitely got it. Your blood oxygen is not bad enough for us to admit you, so just go home. So it sounds like they've really moved many steps from the original place they were about COVID. So welcome. Hey Lisa, good to see you too. Glad you like the waterfall. Do tell me which ones you want, and of course do post questions. We've got a number of questions that have come in. Lucy's on day 19 of COVID, temperature's down. Excellent. So yeah, do post your questions. We've got quite a few questions come in advance, which is brilliant. So I'll give you some of the questions that I'll be talking about. Somebody said, what do we do about critical voices? The voices in our heads. First of all, everybody has voices in their head. The question is the voice in your head, is it nice, is it useful, or is it destructive? And for a lot of us, our internal voices are quite critical, particularly in certain contexts. Quite often we can distract ourselves from our internal, hi Marguerite, internal critical voices by being busy, being occupied, talking to other people. And of course, that's why in lockdown, meditation, prolonged periods of silences, we can really hear the noise of our internal voice, where there's nothing to distract us from it. Other thing people, and I'm going to talk more about that, other things people want to talk about was the power of their unconscious mind. So I'm going to do a bit of work, do a bit of kind of hypnosis. So obviously don't watch this if you are driving, operating dangerous machinery, that kind of stuff. And when I say hypnosis, it's really self-hypnosis. You'll be taking yourself into a calm, relaxing state. Important to note that hypnosis isn't about people taking control of you. It's about you learning how to control where your mind is pointing more effectively. Quite interesting question from Lisa here. Question about pregnancy. Have I heard of hyperemesis? Yes, I have. It's basically massive morning sickness. Can this be sorted out with a lightning process? Yeah, we have seen cases of hyperemesis being resolved with both lightning process, hypnosis, and NLP. It's awful, because obviously when people have morning sickness when they're pregnant, it's a nightmare, but with this particular condition it's so severe they just can't keep anything down, and it starts not become life-threatening. In some cases it does, but mainly it's just really difficult to keep weight on, stay hydrated, all that kind of stuff. Maybe talk about that a little bit. I've also been asked about dealing with other people, which is a theme that keeps on coming up. So one of the questions was, how do you deal with difficult neighbours? Again, this is coming to the fore as we go into lockdown. Whatever it is, I've been doing this for 6 weeks, so I guess it's 6 or 7 weeks for most people. It means you're in closer proximity to people you normally don't see because you exit to work or they go away. Hi Mary, good to see you too. So there's more chance to bump into people, and people are tricky. Maybe you noticed that people can be quite tricky because they're living in their own version of reality, their own version of what's right and wrong, just as I am, just as you are. And when those don't quite meet, when they clash, we're in trouble. So dealing with neighbours, particularly neighbours who seem to be playing loud music, smoking dope all the time, it's wafting into your house, or whatever their problems are. Those are some of the questions people have asked. What do I do about that? And we'll come to that in a minute. What do you do? We also had a question about how do you deal with your kids, particularly if they've got some behavioural complexities. Somebody talked about something, a child with oppositional defiant disorder, which is basically where they won't do anything they're told to a million degrees. And how do we deal with that? How do we deal with people with OCD who like everything to be the way it is? And when you're hanging around the house, things aren't as tidy, neat, clean, normal as they normally are. How do you deal with that? These are important questions. And there was a question about, which is another interesting one. A lot of people in this time are looking at reflecting on, how's my life going? And other people are looking at being super creative and building that new program and and getting stuck in that conflict between, well, I just want to chill out and I should be doing something like all these people are telling me they're doing. You have to remember that a lot of people's social media life, much like my waterfall, is fake. It's just not real. I'm assuming I'm not actually sitting in a pond with a beautiful waterfall behind me. Lots of people present a fake version of how the world is, or the best version, the idealized version, not the dirty socks in the laundry and the dog hair on the floor, but their perfect life. And we have to remember that just because they say they're doing that, that may not actually be true. What else we got? Questions, tips to help those with dementia who are afraid healthcare, working in PPE, not able to express. It's tough, really tough for people with dementia at the moment. They have no idea what's going on, or people who are just quite isolated, to deal with all these people in masks coming at them and just to change a routine. Very tricky. Lockdown on your own. Clara's in lockdown on her own. So it's a different challenge in itself. She's got to learn some self-love. Well, that's an interesting lesson. More about pregnancy, bad headaches and fatigue, using the lightning process for this. Not sure I'm conquering the things I'm doing. How do you stay motivated, or more to the point, how do I stay motivated, says Mary. Good. So brilliant. Lots of awesome questions. Right, a few notes here. So we've got a lot of stuff about pregnancy. Is there a way to make yourself hungry when you don't feel hungry? Yeah, there is some stuff you can do about that. You might want to look at why that is as well. So let's crack on with some of these things. I think we'll begin with the critical voice. If you have a critical voice sometimes in your life, just pop a comment down. And if you feel bold and excited enough and ready to change it, maybe write down some of the stuff that it says. Just pop them down. It'll be interesting to see what people have got. Some of you who have done a course with me know that right at the end of the course we look at some of these conversations that people run. It's incredible how similar the kind of internal dialogues are that people have that don't really look anything like what that person looks like from the outside. People who seem and appear to be incredibly confident and calm are having this awful conversation with themselves where they say, I'm rubbish, I'm awful, I can't do anything, and feel stressed all the time. And there's this mismatch between how they appear and what they're thinking. And what's interesting about critical voices is although we hear it and we believe it, there's also a kind of conflict in that we also don't think that about ourselves. So we can hold these two kind of diametrically opposed opinions at the same time. Can you heal the body with the LP? Well, it depends what the issue is. Specifically, tubal ligation. Okay. And quite a few people are quite keen to have Lucy's problem of not being hungry. Excellent. Tell me a bit more about tubal ligation. Sounds fascinating. Any tips on keeping out of the fridge when you are on your own lockdown and not baking and eating all the scones? Yep. So Mary says, often stressed and I tell myself I can't do something. It's a classic thing when people say things that are very, very negative to themselves. Remember that statement? I think I've said it a few times. It's worth reminding. You will hear me repeating myself, not just because I've forgotten what I said, but also the more you hear things, I reckon you need to hear things 3 or 4 times for it to really kind of stick. So remember that thing. If you treated your friends like you treat yourself, would you have any? So if you treated your friends like you treat yourself, would you have any? If you said some of these things you're saying inside your head to other people, what would people do? Would they want to be your friends or would they want to run away? So we've got Mary saying she's often stressed and tells herself, I can't do anything. Anybody else want to contribute? About what things? Great. Critical Voice says, if I was better using the lightning process, I wouldn't still have bad COVID symptoms after 6 weeks. Yeah. One of the problems with the critical voice, particularly if you have a lot of it, is it does not reduce stress levels. It increases stress, doesn't help you be calm, and that has a tendency to just knacker your immune system. And so you get into one of those vicious circles where beating yourself up is a brilliant way to stay stuck. One of the things hi Christy, nice to see you. One of the things I always recommend, particularly when you're doing, dealing with illness, is be kind to yourself. A lot of people, particularly actually with the lightning process, but other techniques as well, you can get it with meditators and yoga and all the rest of it. People think that they're what they need to do is to kind of push themselves and force themselves and be very kind of unpleasant and military to themselves about getting well. Come on, getting well. And in fact, if you listen on the media, you hear a lot of conflict language around illness, like we're going to fight this disease, we're going to bombard it, we're going to attack it. And generally, I recommend, we want to move through this, but we want to do it with kindness. If we bring stress and anxiety into it, we're probably going to be in a worse situation. So I was talking to, again, someone with COVID this week about using the lightning process and NLP and stuff on how to help. And I said, so there's a thing in the lightning process which basically says you need to recognize when what you're doing, to check in with yourself and go, is this useful for me? Is this helping my life? So it's not, is it good or bad or positive or negative? Is this life enhancing? Which is a really interesting question, because things like, let's say you've had a bad day at work, moaning about it would often be considered to be a negative behaviour. And that may be true. But in the lightning process, it's not actually seen as a negative behaviour. It's seen as is that useful for you? And sometimes it really is. Sometimes it's completely useful to kind of go, you know what, ugh, and just tell everybody how awful that day has been. But there becomes a point in time when it's no longer useful. Right, I've done that now. I don't need to keep on doing this. This is a temporary behaviour that I'm adopting. And that gives you a bit more freedom. And the same when you're ill. If you're ill, then sometimes what you need to do is go, what do I want? I want to sit in front of the sofa and eat chocolates and drink Lemsip, and I don't want to do anything else. And that is exactly the right thing. It's like starting to listen to yourself, starting to trust yourself in a good way. And there'll be other times when you say, right, no, my brain feels good now enough to do some work on how I can boost my immune system. So you can kind of have that balance between being kind and calm and being proactive. But what you don't want to do is when you're feeling awful to just spend all your time trying to go, I must get my immune system working, and then you put yourself under pressure, and that's not going to help you much. So I've got a bit more information about tubal ligation here. I'm assuming the tubes would be the fallopian tubes. That's what you're talking about? Yeah, that's what it would be. Okay. Interestingly, when you have stuff like both tubal ligation, in this case fallopian tubes, but also you can reverse it when people have vasectomies as well. They can be reversed successfully. Will your super vomiting behaviour be as bad on the other pregnancies? Well, that depends a lot on if you've got some other skills that you didn't have during that period of time. And then we've got critical voices. Jenny, my critical voice says everyone. Now, those of you who've trained with me know that is technically a universal quantifier. Quick bit of help for anybody who doesn't know what that is. A universal quantifier is a word like every, all, never, always, that says this happens either all the time or none of the time. It's kind of it's an absolute phrase, and always problematic. So my critical voice says everyone is achieving more than me, so I should, and she's put that in inverted commas as well. I should is another problem, a modal operator of possibility and necessity. I should, suggesting that someone has told you that this is the truth, which it may not be. Should try harder. So it's a good way of beating yourself up. What's interesting, a lot of these behaviours have their origin in being quite motivational. It's like, oh, if I work really hard, then I'll get good results, and then I can be happy, then I can relax. But what happens, they just become an endless treadmill where you just have to keep on being this way, and there's no end point. And quite a lot of them are linked into perfectionism, which I think I talked about last time or the time before. Anyone remember the core thing about perfectionism? It's a binary option. If you have perfection, you cannot have. Anyone want to type it in? It's either one or the other. You either get perfection. If you get perfect, or try and attempt to get perfection, you will not have any. Go on, I want to see the answer. And maybe a slight time lag. The answer is joy. You won't have any joy. It's not possible. Ah, well done. Excellent. It's not possible to get joy and have perfection. Because if you are running a perfectionist pattern, then everything you do will never quite measure up to what you want. So classically, if you do really well in an exam, you'll go, yeah, but the exam couldn't have been that hard, or the examiners are too kind. This said friends. If you have perfectionists, you probably don't have any friends. Yeah, maybe. So yeah, joy is really important. That's a perfectionism, and it comes back a little bit to being really hard on ourselves, trying to be perfect all the time. So Jenny, you do win. I'm not sure what the prize is, but you definitely win. So Lucy's saying it's important to hear that reminder. Is that the reminder about being nice to yourself as you try and heal? And hopefully, who was the other person who said they're struggling? Marion. Same thing for you, Marion. Be kind to yourself. If you're using the lighting process or meditating or yoga or anything, really do it in a nice way. And be generous and be kind and be loving to yourself. Like I can't remember who it was. Was it said that they were isolating alone? Clara, I think it was. Guru says, my inner critic downgrades my achievements and I am rarely satisfied. Yeah, that's perfectionism. It means you won't get any fun. I've got another interesting question. How to deal with bereavement when you're in lockdown? That's real tough. Bereavement is tough anyway, but in this extreme, bizarre circumstances, it's even harder. Maybe we'll do something on that next time, because that's quite a big conversation. But you can take some of the stuff we're talking about today and apply it to how to deal with bereavement, grief, loss. And it's kind of interesting you mention it, actually, because although bereavement tends to be specifically about people can feel bereaved about so many things. So that could be, loss of contact, a bereaved loss of the normal social interactions, or a job. All those things can also be classed as a kind of bereavement because it's something is absent. But yeah, maybe we'll look at that next time. It might be an interesting topic to focus on. So critical voice is the first thing to notice is pretty much everyone has, and the other thing to notice is it's not the only voice you have in your head. You usually have a variety. Some are nicer, some are not so nice. So a couple of things to do with them. The very first thing I would do is listen to where it comes from. And I don't mean where in your history, where physically in space. So if you just point, and then if you want to pop a message down saying, where is the critical voice? Is it coming from the front of your head, from the back of your head, from the right to the left, from your chest, in front of you, behind you? Just notice, where's that voice? If you have a voice, it will have a location that it comes from. And notice where that is. Now, this is a very classic NLP approach, which is adopted by other things as well, where NLP looks at less about the content, the story, the narrative, why have you got this, what's it saying, and more about interesting things like, where is it physically, where does it come from, is it loud, is it quiet? So notice, where is this voice? And as you do notice where it is, just point, use your finger, and just leave a comment. It'd be great if we could hear that, or write it so I can see it. Then what I'd like you to do is just to take this voice and move it somewhere else. Okay, so if it's in your heart, then pop it onto your left shoulder or onto your thumb. If it's in your ears, then is it on both ears or just the left or the right? And have it move somewhere else, to your knees. Just move it around. You can also move it out of your body and have it, if it's here, move it over there. Okay, or down there, or coming out from that bird sitting on the tree, or the otter in the water just behind me. And as you do that, notice just how by repositioning it, it changes how it feels, how it sounds, what it means to you. You'll find as you move it, it will reduce its impact. If you happen to move it somewhere where it increases its impact, then just move it back again and move it somewhere else. But for most people, the further you move it away, because we know sounds that are further away are quieter, the further away you move it, so have it be outside the room, have it be on a bus going to somewhere far away, have it get on a plane and go all the way to the other side of the world, so that when the voice is over there, notice how that changes how you feel about it. You should feel you got a bit more space, a bit more relief, a bit more sense of freedom. There's another interesting thing you can do, which I think I might have talked about before on this, but I'm not sure everyone's been here on the same call before, which is have that voice, wherever it is now, take on the qualities of someone who you think is a bit of an idiot. So somebody whose opinion is something you need to take with a pinch of salt. So a great example for me is Donald Trump. The way he behaves is just astonishing that he is in the position he's in, but that's the way it is. But if I imagine that internal critical voice sounding like Donald Trump, so do the same for you. Change that internal critical voice to have some of the qualities of Donald Trump. The way he talks. Who's the best, and the biggest. Yeah, have it have that quality. And when it says it like that, notice how does that change again, how that feels. Just drop that down as a comment for me as that occurs. When it takes on Donald Trump's qualities or somebody else's, if you have a good example of someone who you think everything they say is a bit, need to let it go, then have it take on that quality and notice how that changes it. And just drop a comment down about that. Is that scary in a good way, Mary? Or was it Donald Trump scaring you? But what if your critical voice became something that you just couldn't take seriously? What would happen now as a result of this? It becomes laughable, that's right, yeah. It becomes something you just can't give the same gravitas, you can't take it as seriously. And that could be really, really useful. You can, as we said before, a course that Jenny was on, you can make it sound like Mickey Mouse. You can speed it up so it's really, really fast. Or you can slow it down. Have it become really, really quiet so you can't hear it. Daffy Duck. Yeah, all these things. Now, what's interesting, if that voice says those things and it feels laughable and comical, then how seriously do you have to take it? Well, not. And then you can just let it flow. And maybe you want to put a different voice, a voice that says something more useful in the place where the other voice was originally. Because it sounds like wherever that was, whether it's in your heart or your ears or the front of your head, that's a place that you pay attention to. So if you put a voice in there that says something really useful, like, you know what, you're going to get through this. I've got you. You're great. I love you. Those things. That might be a slightly more interesting soundtrack for your life. Now, as soon as I say that, if you hear yourself going, oh, but that's just another critical voice you need to let go of. There's another interesting thing which follows on from the session I did last time, which some of you may remember was on compassion, which is if you have a difficult part of you, challenging bit of communication from your unconscious mind, and one of the first things we often recommend you do, a bit like we suggested earlier, is to be kind, to be nice to it. Not to beat it up. So maybe when it's a long way away, you can just thank it for being there and say, don't know why you're there. I'm sure there's been a great reason for me at some point in my past. I may or may not understand why that is. And you're probably serving some kind of purpose for me. And I'd like to acknowledge that. When you think about it, there's some incredible qualities to some of these critical voices. They are often very resilient, very powerful, very good at getting your attention. Maybe those are qualities you'd like even more in your life in positive ways that you could use. So just think on that for a minute. And now we're going to move on to even more work with your unconscious mind. Cheers. So whatever the issue is that you've brought to this seminar, and we've had lots of them, thank you for sharing the issues, or other things that you haven't mentioned, I'd just like you to allow yourself to get comfy. As I say, if you're listening to this now, or if you're listening to it on repeat, and you're not in a safe and appropriate space to get really relaxed and talk to your unconscious mind, then just do it another time. Take care of yourself, you know what to do. And what I'd like you to do is just take a few moments to center yourself, to be here, to breathe. So whatever it is you're putting down as comments, as things that you want to resolve and deal with, just hold them in your mind. And at the same time, just breathe. Notice your breathing. Now, breathing is really important. It's central to so many practices. One of the things, somebody just asked me a question about anxiety. It's central to anxiety and calmness. When people are calm, they breathe very differently from when they're anxious. Anxious breathing is fast, calm breathing is slower, and that affects the spine, the sympathetic nervous system, oxygenation levels, carbon dioxide levels, acidity, alkalinity, all sorts of things. So just start by breathing. Notice how full your breathing is, which bits move, which bits don't. And then as you do, I'd like you to come on a journey with me, and for you to just imagine you're on a magic carpet and you're floating up, all the way up to where beautiful white fluffy clouds are. And there you can just choose a really comfortable cloud to recline in, to feel the softness and kindness of the cloud. And as you do, you can gently, comfortably make out the world beneath you. And you can think for a minute about your unconscious mind. So your unconscious mind is the part of you that takes care of business, takes care of the plumbing systems, central heating systems, the refuse collection, pretty much everything, all the stuff that would need to happen in a city. Your unconscious mind takes care of in your body so that you can stay well and healthy. And it does that just simply without you really having to do very much. So we can notice that, for instance, when you sleep deeply tonight, as you go to bed, your breathing will continue, your heart will beat, your temperature will be regulated, you'll turn over a few times, you may even wake up if you need to go to the loo. That's all managed by your unconscious mind. It takes care of you. When you climb stairs, it alters your blood pressure. When it's hot, it cools you down. When it's cold, it warms you up. Back in the day, in the Freudian model, they used to think of the unconscious mind as a kind of slightly weird, dark, dodgy thing. But in more modern ideas, so Erickson and more humanistic approaches, they see the unconscious mind as our friend, the wise part of us, the part that just gets on with business, takes care of things for us. And we can notice it in our lives where maybe we're really thinking to recall the name of somebody or the name of a song or a movie, and we just can't remember that name. It's on the tip of our tongue. We just think and think and think in a conscious way, just can't find it. Then maybe half an hour or an hour later, pops into our mind. Our unconscious mind has processed that. And there is some interesting research about this, that if you give someone a task and then ask them to stop doing the task and then give them another task, if the task is quite boring, when they come back to the original task, they'll be slightly better at it. Their brain will have thought a bit more about it. So actually downtime, trusting your unconscious mind, can be really useful, really important. It's also the part of us that when we're asleep and we set our alarm for say 7:30, that at 7:29 and 59 seconds, it just wakes up. It knows how to do that. It knows how to keep time. It does all this kind of stuff. That's the part of you that you're paying attention to right now. And the interesting thing about the unconscious mind is it's always listening. And in this particular chat, although I've been talking to your conscious mind, those of you who've done any training with me will also notice I've been talking to your unconscious mind too. Because that's the part of you that is going to help you find new solutions to things that for a long time you've wondered, how will I find a way through it? So as you float down from that beautiful cloud, I'd like you to imagine you're entering a beautiful garden. Everything about this garden is just the way you like it to be. The garden has all the qualities, all the colours, all the shapes that you really like. And as you enjoy being here in this garden, noticing the features, the temperature, how it feels to plant 1 foot, toes, sole and heel, as you walk 1 foot after the other. And over there you see an area that looks so nice, a place that would be so beautiful and relaxing to rest in. So I'd like you to just go there now and allow yourself to relax and calm even more, knowing that this is a process that you used to know how to do very, very well. Maybe you need to learn it a bit more. Just like watching the waves rolling onto the shore and back again. Your whole being can just rest. And you think about how many times those waves have rolled onto that shore. How many thousands of years have they gently rolled up and rolled down? Or maybe you think about the earth just gently turning. Year upon year, just turning. How the stars out there, far, far, far away, sending light from maybe hundreds and thousands and millions of years. And we are just here. And I'd like you to just turn your attention inside and to connect with that aspect of you that knows things. It knows how to cool you down if it's too hot, or how, when you climb the stairs, to make your heart beat a little faster, or when you sleep, to breathe. I'd like you to also think about those times in your life where you've really been in touch with your inner knowing. It may have been around some other people where you thought, something's not right here, I can just sense it. You're picking up on some signals. Or it may be you have an intuition that your friend needs help and you phone them and you find they do. It's a time when you just kind of got in touch with that ability you have to see a slightly bigger picture, to be in touch with that sense of your inner knowing. And as you do, feel that feeling, connecting with that sense for you of being connected with yourself. And from this beautiful place, in this beautiful garden, just observe the issues and challenges happening over there from this place of thoughtfulness and inner wisdom. And notice what starts to come up for you as potential avenues for solutions, or maybe ways of being. So, if the issue is difficult people or neighbours, thinking, well, with reflection, what would really help me? Because they're probably not going to change. Or if the issue is, I really need to be more calm, from this place of reflection and trusting yourself, being kind to yourself, thinking, well, what could I do to really help myself? To step into these moments in a different way, from a different place. If I really come from this peaceful place that I'm in at the moment, how will that transform my ability to feel and see and perceive these events and myself differently? And once upon a time, there was a monastery in the middle of the countryside, far away from villages and towns. And at one time the monastery was very busy. People were fascinated by spiritual and religious practices. But over the recent decades, people seem to be less interested in following a spiritual path. And the monks became older, and they began to worry as to what would happen to their monastery. It just so happened that every summer a rabbi used to come and camp in the forests near the monastery, and he was good friends with the abbot. And he was considered to be a wise man. So the monks suggested to the abbot that he go find his old friend, the rabbi, and ask him if he had any brilliant ideas. Maybe they thought he'll have a catchy tagline or a social media program or something that would suddenly make people interested. Maybe they could produce a product, cheese or wine, that would move things forwards again. So the abbot wandered into the forest, and there, deep within the forest, in a place he didn't expect to find him, sat the rabbi. And they sat down and shared some tea that was cooked under the stars and over the hot fire. And they chatted about this and that, and the abbot began to explain his problems, challenges and issues. And the rabbi nodded wisely and sagely. And he said, I'm not really sure that I can add anything to the ideas you've already come up with. And he sipped his tea, and then he had this kind of faraway look in his eye. Stillness descended. And the abbot said, "Are you okay?" to the rabbi, who didn't really answer, just went quiet, was breathing, stilled. And then the rabbi turned to the abbot and very calmly and in a slightly different wiser voice than usual said, "One of you is the Messiah. One of you is the Son of God." And the abbot was surprised at this, and he said, "What do you mean?" And the rabbi kind of came back to the moment and said, "What do I mean? What?" He said, "Well, you went into this kind of calm space and said this strange message." And the rabbi said, "I'm sorry, I have no memory of this whatsoever. I was just having a cup of tea." And then he said, "What do I mean?" The abbot said, "You said one of us is the Messiah, is the Son of God." The rabbi said, "Sorry, I really don't remember saying that at all, but maybe it's a message." So they chatted some more, and soon it was time for the abbot to return to the monastery, and he pondered as he wandered back through the trees on this message he'd heard. Because you can hear messages in many different ways, different places. Can you not? And when he reached the monastery, the monks were eager to hear the news, what the rabbi had suggested, but slightly disappointed to find there was no product to sell, no social media campaign in the offing. The abbot said, it just went quiet, and then he said in this strange, faraway and wise voice that the Messiah is one of us, the Son of God is one of us. And then when he came back, he didn't seem to remember it. It was very peculiar. The monks chatted amongst themselves about this, and they all kind of pondered it, wondered what the meaning of it was. The next morning, I sat down to breakfast. I had a few hours to think about the message, as you do when you're alone at night, thinking. And you could almost sense a difference as they sat down for breakfast. Each one of them seemed to be looking at the other one with a slightly different set of thoughts. So if you were able to listen in to their internal conversations, you would have heard something like, "Well, there's Brother Michael over there. He's a bit boring, to be honest. He couldn't be the Son of God. If the Messiah is upon us, surely it couldn't be Brother Michael. God would have chosen someone slightly more interesting than him." And I thought, well, maybe it's a test. It's the kind of thing what God would do, make it tough for us. So maybe I should be kinder to Brother Michael just in case he is the Son of God, because you wouldn't want to be rude to him if he was. He looked at the next monk and said, "Well, he doesn't wash very much. He's a little bit smelly, a bit whiffy. But, again, this could be one of God's little tests. Maybe he's the Son of God." And they went round the table thinking of everything they knew about these people and how, they were flawed in interesting, fascinating ways. But maybe, just maybe, they could be the Son of God. And finally, having gone through the assembled company quietly to themselves, they went back for meditation and prayers on their own, and the thought struck them that maybe this must be a crazy thought, but maybe it's me, maybe I'm the Messiah. I couldn't be sure I would know if I was, but maybe again this is one of God's strange tricks. Maybe I need to be kinder to myself just in case I am. And so a changed mood was noted amongst the monks, and some students who were travelling happened to be camping in the grounds, and they noticed this very particular and lovely way of being amongst the monks. This kind of thoughtfulness and respectfulness for each and every member, including themselves. And when they went back to their town, they told people about this, and people were quite intrigued to go and experience the feeling of what it felt like to be surrounded by people who were kind to one another and deeply kind to themselves. And so, over the year, more and more people visited, and some stayed longer, and the monastery began to become known as this place where people not only considered the value of everyone else, but also paid attention to being kind to themselves. And so as you think about whatever it is that for you've learnt now, recently, or in the coming days and weeks, that allow you to reset and recognize whatever it is for you that's important in your understanding of how you can apply this important learning for yourself. And so I'd like you to slowly bring yourselves back to now, but with a new sense of who you are and what's possible for you. Because of course, we have so much within us. You may remember there's a really nice definition of coaching which I use, which is coaching is all about helping people to perform at their best. And your performance is a little equation, which is your potential, what you could be, your fullest you, minus subtracting your interference, so how you get in the way of you being your best you. And your best you doesn't necessarily mean your perfect you or the most doing you, busy. It means about you, remember coming back to what we said about the lightning process, living a life that's enhancing for you and the people around you, whatever that means for you. Now, if you're interested in learning more about this, I will be doing another seminar next week, same time. So you can let me know, leave comments both here and on my page generally, or send us emails, phil@philparker.org, and ask some questions that will help us focus on what's important for you. I hope you found this useful today, looking at your unconscious mind, looking at your changing your voices so they support you. If you're also interested in doing a bit more work, then you may know we've got a new version of an existing course, a brilliant course called the Life Skills course, which I know some of you guys have done, which is online. The first unit of it, the first hour, is completely free, so check that out. If you want to know where it is, then ask me, but it's, if you go to Facebook.com/groups/free NLP, you can find it. And if you want to do that, then I'd really recommend it. I'm going to put a slide up right at the end. I'll show you how you can get more information about doing the whole course. Or if you want to learn to do what I'm doing, which some of you guys are actually quite skilled at because I've trained you, but if you want to learn how to do this, then we do training courses on that too. So if those are things you'd like to do, then do get in touch, because one of the reasons I can do all these things for free is because people buy some of these courses. So if you want to help out this free things for everyone else, then that's another way to contribute. Great to see you all. Michelle's just come on a bit late. I don't know, maybe she's in a different country. She wants to know how the LP helps chronic fatigue. Maybe we'll talk about that next time. Zena likes her monk and rabbi story. Good, especially for you, Zena. You take care of yourselves. If you are, you're probably not going out, you're probably not driving, but if you are, after a calming session like that, give yourself a bit of time just to kind of come back to the room. But reflect on this. You can always re-listen to that. Each time you do, it will help you to remind yourself about, you do know stuff inside. You're central, absolutely central to everything that I teach, and the kind of core to pretty much every bit of work I do is that you do already know You do already know more about you, more about your life, what you want, where you're going, than anybody else could. You're the person best placed to do that. So trust yourself, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for joining, and please share this widely. The more people that see this, the incredible free resource helped by your questions and comments. So please do share it. Let's see if we can get this up to 3,000 or 4,000 next week, and see you guys around. You take care now. Bye.